Greetings. My name is Michael Kahn. I'm an author, revolutionary, and now a presidential candidate. I want to give you a little bit of teachings from my book, Angry, Loud, and Clear Truth, as well as from my other books, The Untold Nature of Christianity and Exposing the Money Machine. And I'll align with them with what's happening today. And then I will get into further matters about the education system, the health system, the legal system, the media, and tell you basically what's going on with them, basically how they've been subversive and destructive to humanity, and intentionally so. I'll also address the Constitution of the United States, the Patriot Act, and much, much more. I've done extensive research into all these matters, tens of thousands of hours of independent, analytical, skeptical research, and come to my own conclusions, which I think you will agree with me when you see all the evidence. I will start off first by saying there's an old allegory of a child who asks his mother, how did it was that Tarzan was able to defeat all the beasts of the jungle using his bare hands and maybe a knife? Highly irregular sounding, unbelievable, especially defeating the mighty lion. And the mother of this child answers, son, when the lion learns to write, then you may hear a different story. What can we glean from this? Two things. One is, whoever's in power and wins controls the narrative. Second of all, and there's a pun intended here, whoever holds the pen holds what we perceive as the truth. I'm going to give you basically some different things, different knowledge than what you've been taught in schools and in textbooks. My extensive research finds the true stories. I cut through the bull and get down to the nitty-gritty. Now, people often are seen who are angry, and I'm an angry man, better believe it. People who are seen as angry are said to be aggressive or wrong or violent. That is not always the case. Perhaps there's a reason for that anger. We should ask, why is he or she angry? And then if we're told bad things about people, we should ask, who says? And then maybe we can ask, who created this reality for us? And then you may want to ask, who does that benefit? And then that will ultimately lead to the following question, which we all should be asking. What would happen if we stopped believing the bullshit? Now I'm going to get us into the reality for us. And I'll start out with the basis of just about all parts of civilization of today. And that would be the Bible, God, and all that religion, all that Christian religion, Islam religion, Jewish religion. I'm going to go into the source of many things that are happening and get down to the creation of God and the creation of man. Not the creation of man. I debunk evolution, but I certainly don't believe the creation story of the Bible where God speaking created all these highly complex matters that happened by speaking. So basically, let us start off with the creation, with the existence of Egypt. Egypt was the second civilization in the world, second advanced civilization in the world. The first one was Mesopotamia, which has been gone down and disguised in history. Let's go into Egypt. Egypt had a highly developed astrology, astronomy, magic, but also constructed pyramids far advanced above our today's construction without the assistance of tanks. I mean, not tanks, of tractors or all the mechanisms we have today to create the construction we have today. They made these pyramids with manpower. How did they do that? They had great embalming sciences, cosmetics, weaponry. How did they do all this? Well, in 323 BC, the Greeks conquered Egypt under Ptolemy working for Alexander the Great, the general working for Alexander the Great. Why did they attack Egypt? Maybe because they wanted the knowledge of the Kemet, that's the name of the mystery schools in Egypt. They basically had where Plato, Aristotle, many Greek teachers got their knowledge from the mystery schools, which taught with allegories, which are basically stories, also called parables. They're stories that are used to prove points. Now, let me just explain to that's a little deceptive because these allegories were false stories. They were not fact. They're fiction stories. Make points, to teach points. You use a fictional story to prove your point. That basically is a foundation of lies. And you can make any kind of point you want to, and it may not be valid, but sure does sound like it is. Now, the Greeks conquered Egypt in 323 BC, and then the Romans conquered the Greeks in Egypt in 30 BC. And the Romans basically ruled, and it was in around between 75 AD and 125 AD is when the first codexes, parchments of the New Testament were formed. And first, let's go back to Egypt. Moses, who wrote the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Torah, was an Egyptian prince. He basically wrote those first 5 books, including Genesis, which included Noah, Babel, the Red Sea parting. That's in Exodus, actually. But basically, a lot of stories that are highly unbelievable. The flood. This is the creation story. BS. It's all baloney. These are created to teach us things, but then it's falsehood. Moses, the Egyptian prince. So basically, the Hebrews, and I don't believe there's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob ever existed. The stories are too damn wild to believe, at least for me. I test things for truth, and I find them full. They don't add up. But basically, then Moses creates the Jewish religion. And by the way, the Song of Solomon, the first chapter, is the only place in the Old Testament that describes what people look like. In the Song of Solomon, the first chapter, the woman says that she is dark or black from working in the fields. The first Hebrews and the Egyptians, the slaves and others were depicted in ancient Egyptian sculptures and pictures as having Negro features. The Hebrews, the original Hebrews, were black. Not the whites. The whites you see as being Jews of today, the Jewish people, Ashkenazi Jews, as I am one, are basically come from Khazars. And basically they joined the Hebrews 1,000 years ago or so, and basically are Ashkenazi Jews of today, and they have their source in Edom. They're Edomites, not original Hebrews. And basically these Hebrews were basically, Israel was defeated by Rome in early back 30 BC, and basically Rome ruled over almost all the civilized world at the time. And the original codexes for the New Testament, which are dated back with carbon dated back to between 75 AD and 125 AD, were, in my opinion, created by a man named Josephus. Now, why do I say Jesus never existed, or created by a man, fabricated by a Hebrew? Josephus was a Pharisee, a Hebrew. And he basically was a leader of the Hebrew Revolution against Rome around 70 AD. He basically turned over the Roman side when he saw the Hebrews were definitely going to lose. That Rome had an easy victory. He saw there was no chance. He went to the Roman side. Later became an aristocrat of Romans, married a Roman woman, and made much wealth. He's the author of a book you can still get today called The Antiquity of the Jews. And it's historically and geographically correct. And he's the only place you'll find out in the New Testament that refers to Jesus, his writing, the Antiquity of the Jews. Why would nobody else report that a man of Jesus, of all his popularity, unless Jesus never existed and Josephus was the writer of that? Now, why was there nobody writing about Jesus when he lived? Why not until 45 years after he died did they start writing about him? And why was it that the 3 synoptic gospels all basically had the same stories, almost exact same words, by 3 different authors written at different times, unless it was the same person writing them? And look at the style, it's pretty much the same. All the New Testament, much of writing is still all the same. Now, Josephus lived at the same time Paul supposedly did. And the writings came out at the same time. So basically, it all adds up that way. Furthermore, I have more evidence that Jesus never existed because the New Testament, basically, let's first go to the Old Testament. The Old Testament, by following God, you win wars, get wealth, and acquire slaves. Basically, teach New Testament, be a good slave. In Romans 13 and 1 Peter 2, basically says, honor and obey the governing powers. And what politician in any country is worth honoring and obeying? We see they're all corrupt liars. They enforce bad laws, don't enforce the good laws. We see this clearly. Why would anyone want to honor or obey the damn politicians? Furthermore, in 6 different places in the New Testament, it says, slaves, obey your masters no matter how wicked they are. It also says, be a sheep. Love those who hate you. Pray for your enemies. Return good for evil. When you're persecuted for doing righteousness, rejoice. Blessed are the meek. Turn the other cheek. Be a sheep. A sheep is a positive thing in the New Testament. Sheep are dumb. They follow. They have to be protected. They have to be led to eat, led to sleep, led to drink, healed of their ills. They can't do any of this themselves. They need a shepherd. And I'll tell you right now, I've experienced Christianity. I was a Christian for 10 years. Devout. I loved God, loved Jesus, read the Bible. I read the Bible 2 hours a day. I studied it 10,000 hours altogether. I preached here over in the streets. I never wanted to be a pastor, saying up on the pulpit, looking down on people and telling people what God has to say to them. No, I was a servant. I went by the Bible. I obeyed it totally. I was not a lover of money, still am not, never was my whole life. I've been a pacifist. Was meek, not anymore. Was humble, not anymore. But basically, all this points to people to basically imposing a slave and submissive mentality on the people. In Matthew 23, Jesus calls the Pharisees, which are the governing leaders, and religious leaders, he called them hypocrites, blind guides, serpents, whitewashed tombs eaten with worms, and dirty and filthy inside. Appearance is good, but inside dirty and filthy. All in Matthew 23. So why was it that when he's asked, should you pay taxes, he said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and do what God is God's. In other words, give the pastors, the rabbis, your money. Now, why would he do that when he went into the temple twice and basically cleansed it of the money dealers? So he said, overturn tables with a whip. The only time he's violent is against the religious leaders. And you overturn their tables, telling them that you should not. He basically got angry at their corruption. So why would the Bible say, give taxes to the governor and pay tithes to the church? If he's a revolutionary, as the Bible depicts him. People, think before you believe things you shouldn't. My book, The Untold Nature of Christianity, buries the Bible, using hundreds and hundreds of scriptures to prove my points. I show it's a deceptive book promoting obedience to evil, submissiveness in slavery, and opposite advice what it teaches basically has conceptual there's conceptual contradictions, there's outright lies, subversive values, teaches all kinds of bad things. Obedience to evil people, intentionally and deliberately. Now, furthermore, let's go into the ruling powers and what happened with this. We are now ruled, and this is what you'll find out. This is just to give you an introduction to who really rules us. We are ruled by, first of all, a man named Mayor Amschel Bauer. He was a rich banker in England in the 1700s. He became richest banker in all of England in 30 years, and eventually owned England, loaned money to the King of England, and he owned England. He changed his name to Rothschild. This Mayor Amschel Bauer, in 1776, he got together with a Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, and they got together and formed what they called the Illuminati. Power of the Vatican, and the richest man in England at the time, way rich. He was like 10 times richer than the second richest banker. They got together and they formed the Illuminati, a bunch of very rich people. Now, also the Catholic Church, we'll go into how Rome ruled over, but the Catholic Church also had other than the Jesuits. The Jesuits were started by a man named Ignatius of Loyola in 1534, and they basically, let me describe what Mr. Roberto, a Jesuit himself, how he described the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. These are a man trained in the Vatican. This is what he says. I'll read his direct words from the introduction to The Secret History of the Jesuits. and this by Edmund Paris. This is Alberto Roberto. The most dangerous men are those who appear very religious, especially when they are organized and in a position of authority. They have the deep respect of the people who are ignorant of their ungodly push for power behind the scenes. These men who pretend to love God will resort to murder, incite wars and revolution if necessary to help their cause. They are crafty, intelligent, smooth, religious politicians who live in a shadowy world of secrets, intrigue, and phony holiness. The Vatican. This is the Vatican. So basically, this is a Jesuit, a former Jesuit, describing what they did. And this Ignatius Loyola basically created the Jesuits. I go back to this, but it says here that it was Jesuit duty to perform political propaganda, to assassinate world leaders, to incite rebellion from states opposing the Vatican, and to punish heretics. And it says here that the doctrines of the Jesuits demand that their will, reasoning, and scruples be sacrificed to the highest virtue, not being obedience to the Pope, also known as the Jesuit general. Now, today's Jesuits are ruled by the Jesuit general. The current one's name is Sosa Abascal. And they basically run all banking of every nation, all Freemasonry, we'll get it in a minute, and guess what else? Secret intelligence of every nation. Now, I'll go into how basically the Himmler, who was the Nazi, he was a Jesuit and created the OSS in direct imitation of the Jesuits, the OSS, the Nazis' secret intelligence. Now, I'll go in further later to describe how the United States, after defeating Germany, after defeating the Nazis, created our NSA, later the CIA, in direct imitation of the OSS. So you see where our CIA has its origination in the Jesuits. Now there's a triune of power right now. The Illuminati, now called globalists, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Queen of England's family, the Reynolds, DuPont, and many others, about half a dozen others, rule with their wealth, with the Vatican, and also through Freemasonry. Who are the Freemasons? Well, the Knights Templar, which basically were the Crusaders hired by the Vatican back in the 1200s, 1100s, 1200s. They did the Crusades. They murdered Jews and Muslims and Christians, killed off everybody. Gave the Catholic Church a black eye, but looked bad for them to work for the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church fired them in the 12th, 13th century. But they did not break up, though. They continued mercenary work. They were paid military. They continued mercenary work. They went into banking, loaning, and financing, and also into the occult, the Bible occult. And what they do? They basically change their name. In 1776, same year the Illuminati formed, that same year, they changed their name to the Freemasons. Every president we've had, except the one or two, were all Freemasons. So you see what we're ruled by and where we are. The triune, the Vatican, the Freemasons, and the rich bankers, the Illuminati, are who rules the world in wealth. And we're told that the top 1% have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50%. Baloney! The top 1,001%, the top 13 families own 99% of the wealth. They are trillionaires. The Rothschilds own the federal bank of every nation now. They print up all currencies at the cost of paper and ink and sell them at face value. Every bit of work done by everybody on the planet just about has profited the Rothschilds entirely for about a century. You can imagine their wealth. The Queen of England's family owns over a fifth of the real estate on the planet. The interest alone brings in the Queen of England's family $360 million a day, not to mention rent and other revenues. Rockefeller owns Standard Oil, the top conglomerate, the umbrella conglomerate of all conglomerates in the United States. Now I'll go into later how he basically makes all legislation through the Council on Foreign Relations and how they rule over the United States governance. I'll go into right now, as a matter of fact. The Council on Foreign Relations, which Rothschild founded, and also then, basically in around 1921, later was solidified in 1947 or so, The Council of Foreign Relations is founded by David Rockefeller, and he appoints all members. And he basically, the globalist Illuminati decide what's going to happen, and they do a group think tank with the Council on Foreign Relations, which has 300 members, all basically they're from the education system, the media, top universities, the media conglomerates, the government employees, the military, all top people of all fields, are energy, Shell, whatever, are represented in the Council for Relations, who creates a legislation that the Congress and Senate pass. They rubber stamp it. Our politicians rubber stamp it and put money in their wallets for the Council Funds for the rich Illuminati. And that is how decisions are made. The politicians, you have to make it speeches. They pretend they hate each other, throw mud. It's all an act. Like Frank Zappa said, politics is the entertainment division of the government. These politicians don't do a thing but act, make speeches, and pretend like they're governing. They're just filling their wallets and performing like WWF wrestlers, saying BS. I'll show much more evidence later on. We'll see it. But furthermore, let's go back a little ways now. Basically, Rome, which is, from Egypt, and then later, Rome consisted, get this, Rome consisted of England, Spain, and France, among many other countries. Rome dissolved, so-called, but the Catholic Church, the RC Church, never dissolved. But Rome dissolved as an empire, and England, Spain, and France, what did they do? They went there discovering different countries. Now let us go to Columbus and see what he said back in right here. This is from a Journal of Columbus from 1492. Your Highness, what Christopher Columbus wrote in his journal. Your Highnesses, as Catholic Christians and princes who love and promote the holy Christian faith, and are enemies of the doctrine of Muhammad and of all idolatry and heresy, determined to send me, Christopher Columbus, to the above-mentioned countries of India to see the said princes, peoples, and territories, and to learn their disposition and the proper methods of converting them to our holy faith. And furthermore, direct that I should not proceed by land to the east as customary. So he goes on. So see, when he went to discover India, it had nothing to do with discovering new ways to get spices, as if cloves are that important. Cloves and cinnamon are that important. No, he went to discover new peoples, to conquer and to convert to Catholic to Christianity. That was his real purpose. Now, what did these countries do? England, Spain, and France? They went there, they discovered, they apprehended, then they conquered, they murdered the indigenous people of every land, of North America, South America, India, Africa, China, the Middle East, Australia. They went there, they discovered, they made friends with people. Then they went over there, and they started making friends. They inhabited land, then they conquered them, they murdered them, committed genocide, slavery, oppressive rule. And in China, they introduced opium and encouraged all the Chinese to use opium, addicting them and destroying them. This is the Roman way. Now, I'm not saying all Italians or all English people, all French are evil. No, please get me straight. Money and God, belief in the occult and money do terrible, evil things to people. And people do evil things. This is not, however, just about making a profit, as you'll see later. There are forces of evil on this planet. We're making things happen. I know it's a hard thing to understand, to swallow, that people are actually evil. You think, well, it's all greed, isn't out of pure want to hate humanity? No, these people hate humanity. What kind of greed would drive somebody to kill millions of people unnecessarily? No, there's more to it than just greed, and we'll get into that later. It's a terrible thing to conceive. It's hard for me to accept either that people actually hate human beings, want them dead or in hell. But understand this. Think of this a bit about the Christian religion. And this is not against Christians. There's many good Christians. But the Christian religion says, it basically has scriptures proving that God has created everything in foreknowledge and predestination. The scriptures show that in the Bible clearly. That means that God knowing how it would turn out, and made it happen deliberately, intentionally, creating hell to put billions of people in for everlasting torment for like being liars or having sex and put them in hell forever. Don't you think the punishment far exceeds the sin? And then he basically made wars to happen, crime, drugs, oppression, disease, parasites, evil people, greed, all made intentionally, deliberately by a good, loving God. People, wake up. Your pastors are taught in seminary, and I prove this in my book, The Untold Nature of Christianity, that pastors are taught in seminary that the Bible is lies. Now, in the New Testament, it talks about how Rome is, how the Hebrews in Israel are ruled by Rome, by the governor, the government, plus also by the religious leaders, the Pharisees. When Jesus is executed, the governor wants to release him, but the religious leaders have the overhand rule and basically say, "Oh, we're going to report you guys to the king. You're going to be protested if you don't execute this Jesus." But the religious leaders did not have the power to kill somebody by hanging it. They could by stoning, but in this instance, they did not have the power. Only the governor had the power to kill somebody. So understand, there's a dual power. The religion and the government work in tandem together in the rule of the people, and it still happens today. And you'll see how. Like I just said, the Vatican, the rich, and the Freemasons rule us in reality. It isn't us votes, our votes, it isn't the politicians. Those are the ones who really rule. And you'll see later and clearly how this truly is. And now, now I'm going to sign up for now. We will get more in the following little videos I'm going to put out, which are going to describe very clearly how mankind has been subverted, especially through the propaganda and lies and symbolism of the media. Now they brought us down. Drugs, symbolism, the same thing. Cocaine is really symbolism for those who know it. If you are not to the symbolism, you look for symbolism in everything. And it confuses you, brings you into other realms. You cannot think correctly, and also you have no power and strength to you. I basically learned the symbolism, also learned to refuse it. I don't think about it. And I learned symbolism by reading the Bible myself. I studied it 10,000 hours from the original Greek and Hebrew. I figured out the symbolism myself. I've learned some intelligence from a lot of study. Intelligence is not born. You develop it by intelligent reasoning and study and exercising your mind, like exercising your muscles. And that is basically how I earned some intelligence, some knowledge by hard work of the mind. But I've held many jobs. I've been a CEO and I've been a warehouse worker. I've had many jobs over that. I've been a lecturer, I've been an author, I've been a teacher. I also worked as a dishwasher, a janitor, a warehouse worker, assembly line. I worked many jobs. I'll tell you right now, physical labor is much harder than thinking labor. It's more exhausting. So don't let the people tell you that because they're CEOs and the rest, that they earn the money more through their labor. Baloney. People, the working men, deserve more than the thinking men. Just how it is. Just telling it like it is. Have a great day. I'm signing out. The next message is coming soon. Michael Kahn, author of Angry, Loud, and Clear Truth, The Untold Nature of Christianity, and Exposing the Money Machine.